Anime! Chances are, if you clicked on this here video, you have watched an anime at some point. And chances are you have seen a shonen anime. For those of you who don't know, first of all, why are you watching? And second of all, shonen is a genre of manga and anime aimed toward young males, and typically known for their action and epic fight scenes. The poster children for this genre are Dragon Ball, One Piece, and Naruto, and maybe Bleach if you're feeling funky. This genre has been around longer than you may think. Eventually, Shonen Jump celebrated their 50th anniversary and released the biggest, most epic crossover game featuring all of your favourite shonen heroes and villains, plus Boruto. Jump Force. This isn't the first anime crossover fighting game, but it's the one which received the most attention. Anime games in general have a very bad rep, at least when it comes to fighting games, due to them all being generic 3D fighters for the most part. And this game has a mostly negative reception, and I partially agree. But there are some things I like here. That's right, this game isn't complete garbage. Only partially. Let's slow down and begin the review. But before that, I'm going to have to ask you to subscribe, because YouTubers need to ask this in every video now. Jump Force is the most fun dumpster fire I've ever played, and here's why. In a game like this, the main draw for anime fans alike is the vast roster of iconic characters. This roster is almost so perfect. I could gush about this roster for a while, and I will. Let's begin with the big three: Dragon Ball, Naruto, and One Piece. They all have the most representation, and rightfully so. Goku, Naruto, and Luffy are all on the box after all. I won't be talking about the DLC characters just yet. DBZ first. This is the selection you would expect. Goku, Vegeta, Frieza, Trunks, Cell, and Piccolo? Hot take, Piccolo shouldn't be here. I would much rather have had Krillin or Beerus. Piccolo is just sort of lame? Sorry Piccolo fans? Next up to bat is One Piece, my personal favourite. This selection isn't perfect either. We have Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Boa, Sabo, and Blackbeard. My issue is with Sabo, but this is mainly due to my disdain for the character in general. I would just rather have had Ace. Sanji is almost completely useless if an enemy team is using a female character too. I get the joke, it's funny for the first time, but I just want to use Sanji, but I barely can. I can't say much about the Naruto selection due to my lack of experience with the series, but I do know that people don't really like Kaguya, and let's add Boruto too, why not? My favourite part of the roster is the balance between older shows and the newer generation. Rurouni Kenshin and Yu Yu Hakusho are some of my favourite shows despite being very old. I'm so glad they didn't forget about these shows and represented them perfectly. The main hero and the main villain. Perfect. Fan favourites like Jotaro, Yugi, and Gon are here as well. There wasn't much doubt, but I'm glad they're here. And thank God they didn't pick Jonathan again. Then we have the newer shows, Black Clover, My Hero Academia, and Boruto maybe. I'm not the biggest fan of these shows, but I'm glad they're here. However, the base roster feels like many landmark shonen legends were missing. Characters from the previous game, J-stars like Kuro-sensei, Gintoki, and Bobobo are all gone. I understand Kuro-sensei, tentacles are hard to make or something, but Gintoki and Bobobo are huge characters and they are nowhere to be seen here. And then the DLC did the crazy choice of adding to pre-existing series instead of adding new IPs. For example, we had Kaiba, Biscuit, All Might, Bakugo, Madara, Law, Boo, Toshiro, Grimmjow, Todoroki, Miriam, Hiei, and more to come. We received 3 more My Hero Academia characters. Why? Some of these characters should have been in the base game too. Replace Piccolo with Boo, replace Kaguya with Madara, and replace Sanji or Sabo with Law. Hiei, Miriam, and All Might are good to see though. We may also receive Giorno from JoJo's, and I can't wait for the internet to explode from that reveal. Another thing I noticed is the lack of character interactions at the start of matches. 80% of the time, the leading characters will say the same stock one-liner over and over, but rarely the two will actually talk to each other. It's so rare that it feels like a waste. Why can't Goku talk to Dio, or Gon to Shishio? Mortal Kombat can do this, and I love it there. I want Jump Force to do the same. Overall, the roster is very good, but some icons are flat out missing. The DLC choices are questionable and some characters got more attention than others. So this is a fighting game, like any good crossover. Except it's another stupid arena fighter. Bandai Namco, nothing is wrong with 2D fighters. You've seen how successful it can be. Please, if you make a sequel, make it a traditional 2D fighter. But no, this isn't absolutely abysmal. So it's a 3v3 system with assists and special attacks, indicated by a bar. But you can also power up, like an anime. How about that? Each character has light and strong attacks, as well as a selection of special attacks. It feels super button mashy, and honestly it rewards mashing. But if you time a block just right, you can dodge and counter attack, or sometimes even completely escape a combo for free. People have problems with this, but I think it's alright. I love the power-ups or awakenings. Goku goes Super Saiyan Blue, Naruto goes Sage Mode, and Luffy goes Gear Second, I think. This mode powers up attacks and makes ultimates even stronger. These are a spectacle to behold, but some characters are super underwhelming. Piccolo's ultimate is just super underwhelming. I mean, look at Yugi's! Now that is an ultimate. For the most part, every character is different and pretty well balanced. But some characters feel weaker than others, like the aforementioned Sanji, but Kurapika and even Blackbeard aren't the greatest. My three mains are Zoro, Kenshin and Rukia. All characters I love and are also sword users. What can I say, swords are cool. Some other characters that I like are Frieza, Jotaro and Goku. Speaking of Frieza, some characters are rewarded for spamming attacks over and over again, like Frieza's Finger Blasts or most of Yugi's specials. A good player can usually find a way around this, but for newcomers this can be beyond frustrating to play against. I'm not offended by the game's combat, but I feel like a 2D fighter would have been so much better. The best way I like to describe this game's story is like a crappy, boring version of the Avengers. Basically, all of these characters need to team up to defeat the villain whose name escapes me. There are also these Venoms, which are just boring as hell custom characters with zero distinct personality. In the story, you play as your CAC, and need to recruit various characters and then defeat some bad guys. Sometimes it's just Venoms, but then you could fight the actual villains from the shows. Every now and then, characters like Vegeta get possessed or something. Honestly, the story is complete garbage and consists of nothing but boring fights and awkwardly animated cutscenes. But what about these fun-looking fellas? I don't remember their names, but I can't be asked to look them up. They have absolutely no distinguishable features to speak of and look like fan-made DBZ villains. At one point in the story, if I recall, you need to fight Toguro like 4 times in a row with no clear differences. Most missions have you playing as your custom character, as well as 2 other characters you have recruited. And then you have to fight the same guys over and over and over and over again for 10 hours. The final boss is also unbelievably cheap. It took me maybe 2 to 3 hours alone to beat both forms. It's not because it's hard, it's because it's unfair. Do not, I repeat, do not play the story mode. You get nothing out of it. Stay away. Not to mention the AI is atrocious. Sometimes they are brain dead stupid, sometimes they spam the same attacks over and over, and sometimes they are absolute gods. The story is one of the worst parts of the game, and they absolutely could not afford to mess it up. Needless to say, they did more than muck it up. They made it absolutely miserable to play. This is the main culprit to why the game sucks for so many people. Dragon Ball FighterZ did something similar with its story, and while it wasn't perfect, it was at least enjoyable at times, and it doesn't drag on as much as Jump Force. The art style they chose for the game was a point of contention in the fanbase. I for one actually really like the art style. They chose a mix of anime and realism aesthetics. There was a lot of detail put into the hair in particular. This shows with the Dragon Ball characters as well as Yugi. It looks great, even if a bit jarring at first. Characters like Kenshin and Yusuke have never looked better. However, some characters do look odd. Piccolo and Aizen look off to me for some reason. I can't place my finger on it. Then the soundtrack doesn't have any songs I remember, and it's just sort of generic fighting music. I don't even think they remixed any songs from the shows featured in the game. I could be wrong though. In fights, the animation is also fantastic. The characters move like they would in the show. In the fights. I don't need to explain what I mean. Look at this. There is zero animation applied to Frieza here. Also, the mocap looks out of place. I don't want to see Goku moving like this. That's not my Goku. Then we have the frame rate. The very first cutscene of the game is an absolute dumpster fire 9 times out of 10. Maybe the uber detailed characters models are to blame for this, or the abundance of particle effects everywhere, it's hard to say. At least the fights run well most of the time, at least offline. I cannot believe they released this game without a rematch button for online matches. Games released a decade before this had rematch buttons. It's a fundamental feature for a fighting game online system. It got so bad that they delayed DLC fighters just to add a rematch button. By the time they added the feature, most people had given up on the game. This is unacceptable. The piss poor online doesn't help. I barely play online because of this. The hub world is also atrocious. 3 vaguely themed and puny areas connected by a bland, boring hub with 0 personality. The game crumbles due to these issues. A fighting game with crappy online is bound to fail. They clearly wanted the game to look pretty before anything else. If they make a sequel, these problems need to be fixed. Jump Force is a game I really wanted to like because there is so much that could have worked. The art style, the roster, and the fighting mechanics are all things I like. Not love, but I respect it. But the story, online, and general dumbass decisions made by the devs make the game turn sour. I do not condone Bandai Namco in any way here. The choices made by them are so incomprehensibly stupid that it will take more than DLC fighters to make me forget. However, I do hope they make a Jump Force 2 to see if they learn from their mistakes here. And that just may happen. The game sold very well at launch. Only time will tell. Overall, Jump Force is a game where the negatives outweigh the positives. But if you just want a fun anime fighting game, you could pick worse. You could pick One's Justice.